Hello, once again, folks. Welcome to another episode of I Ruined It, the art series where I take some of your favorite childhood things and ruin them. Due to some changes in location, today's video will be a best of. So without further ado, let's get into it.
All right, so we're just gonna kind of kick it off here. I honestly don't know if I ever knew that this thing was called the corn popper. Just tangentially, like, little fun thing there. I had been talking to Cryptic earlier today, and him and I were both just like, yeah, that little like push poppy lawnmower type of thing. But when I was going to find a reference image for one of these, I just kept finding it listed on sales sites as the Fisher-Price corn popper. That being said, though, yeah, we just went through and honestly, I thought the base liner that I did was clean enough, so I just went through and I selected that entire layer, gave it a wash with black, and then here we go, skedaddling on to giving it a quick color. Pretty simple design overall. I mean, it's mostly just a dome over top of another dome, so not really too much to worry about. And then the entire color scheme, like I mentioned in the intro, it is a toy initially meant for like a toddler or a young child, so it's not meant to be overly complicated, just pretty simple. Basic color schemes between red, blue, purple, blah, 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 yada, yada, yada. The entire gradient of the visible spectrum. So that gives us our base reference, our quick little beginner drawing here. If you notice, I didn't want to draw too many balls in the little dome section. I figured just enough where it's recognizable. But now I get to show you how I ruin it. So I'm not sure exactly what the primary demographic is for these videos, let alone if anyone in the demographic even would remember. But the concept that came up with for this was the movie Speed, starring Keanu Reeves and Sandra Bullock from back in the day. So instead of this just being a toy where you go through and you push it to pop the corn, you start pushing it and you're not allowed to stop pushing it. Otherwise the popping starts. So as you'll see here, I'm drawing a cartoony looking set of dynamite and a really rudimentary box to house a kind of sensor / speedometer type of thing. The design for it becomes a little bit more apparent as the rest of the drawing comes through. So here I am going through. Now I'm making that main body housing at the bottom along with the wheels. I figured it would be used for something a little bit bigger, a little bit more sturdy, given the overall reasoning as why it exists. So it wouldn't be a completely unfair challenge. But it would also stand to reason that you'd need to have a slightly different handle. You wouldn't need something exclusively for pushing it so much, maybe more so trying to drag it behind you. So it has a lot more of a tombstone-esque handle to mimic those larger traveling suitcases with the tow handle and the wheels on the sides. And speaking of Tombstone, it just kind of fits thematically, given the explosive nature of the ruined version of this. But I ended up doing the same trick that I did with the base model, where I just went through. I thought that my liner was well off enough and that I didn't need much for cleanup, so I went through, gave it the once over, just kind of covering all the baseline blues with black. And then we go through and we color everything in. We're just more or less going to keep the general reference, so if it's something that's not super consequential, like the main body here or the housing for the speedometer, we're just keeping it that soft gray / off-white color. Before going in with our reds, this tape on the front is actually supposed to mimic the Fisher-Price logo on the front of the original toy. And then we're going to color the dynamite sticks in that same color scheme that we used for the orbs / beans / balls / poppy corny goodness. Needed a moment here, look over everything. And then we start adding those same colors in on the speedometer as our signifying type of colors. So I went through and added the red to show the danger zone, the green for the safe zone, and then this kind of marigold orange for this last stick is going to be the warning zone. And I made sure to incorporate that purple to kind of break up the warmer / spring tones of the marigold and the lime / grassy kind of green. But now that that main ruined toy is all finished, just giving it a quick backdrop here, I thought it'd be a little campy or funny or whichever synonymous term you'd like to use. I thought it would be interesting, let's go with that, to have it just kind of propped up against a garage door that's partially ajar, as if ominously waiting for someone unsuspected to come by and try messing around with it, or possibly it starts falling and rolls away, unintentionally activating the the speed sensor that's on it, causing an accidental detonation. But also at the same time being similar to, you know, something that you would see at your house if you were to have one. The kids would be done playing outside for the day. Just it being leaned up against the garage, not quite away, but as away as the kids would maybe have the want to do. Oh, but that brings us to one of my favorite parts of these videos, going through masking and doing all of our shadows. Giving the quick blur around the edges where it needs to before dropping down the opacity of the levels. Coming in with our edge highlights with this white. I think highlights are where I still need the most work. I feel like I've come a long way from just a handful of months ago, but I feel like I can still work at it a little bit more. Regardless, we're now going and masking off our scenery and our ground. So As some of you may have noticed, something I like to do for these videos is I like to keep the lower shadowing for our toys, quote, to be a little bit generic so that they can fit both the before and after. But speaking of before and after, that'll do it for this episode, guys and girls, non-binary folks. So if you have a suggestion for a future video, feel free to leave a comment down below. If you liked it, hit the like button. We post a new one of these every Wednesday. If you'd like to keep up to date, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell. YouTube's pretty good about pushing these things out to you guys, but not always. In the meantime, folks,
the series is a little hard to do as a your favorite things when I'm not getting much for suggestions. So I just went with something that I liked from when I was a kid. I started playing Yu-Gi-Oh when I was about, like, the trading card game. Yu-Gi-Oh when I was about 5-6 years old is when I first got a starter deck Joey Wheeler. Yeah, that tracks. And I remember I had plenty of times trying to pay attention to how the game was played from watching the show and trying to read that instruction booklet when I was like 5-6 years old so that I could play with my my dad, because he's a pretty big fan of like fantasy things and tabletop games. And all these years later, I don't know exactly what it was about the series, but something just stuck, and I still play. Granted, don't play the tabletop card game as much as I used to, but I still play from time to time with a buddy of mine, and a lot of you might know him. It's actually Cryptic Dream, the guy that I do the or did versus Lock with. Him and I will meet up in person and we'll play a couple matches or even just rounds depending on what time we have. But I've also been getting back in and playing Master Duel again for like the 4th time in the last 2 years. So, although I have more personally favorite monsters from the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, I figured Kuriboh would be a little bit more recognizable for some of you folks that just have like the nostalgia of watching the show. And that being said, the way that we're ruining it today, if it wasn't super obvious, is we're going to be taking Kuriboh from the anime kind of art style that was highly popularized for the card game by the late Kazuki Takahashi, and we are going to be giving it a more Western animation style, trying to make him look more like a Nickelodeon sidekick character. I'm just picturing, instead of the chirping and cooing that Kuriboh does in the anime, he rather has like a series of one-liners, like, and some kind of a Brooklyn accent akin to Joey Wheeler from the Team 4-Star Yu-Gi-Oh! The Abridged series. Or no, not Team 4-Star. The Little Kuriboh. Wow, full circle here. Abridged series of the Yu-Gi-Oh! Franchise. But despite the fact that Kuriboh doesn't have a personally big place in my heart, that doesn't mean that he does. The character and the franchise itself doesn't have just such significant meaning to some of the longer relationships I've had with people. Some good memories from when I was a kid. So I really wanted to do my best to do good with Karibo, just like I do with any other character. So as you see here, I went through and started with that base kind of darker hair. It's kind of funny thinking back now. Kind of looks like my hair from the intro for this. A little squiggly and all over the place. Something I did do a little bit differently in this one, though, is instead of doing the mask shading like I normally do, I went through and I did the kind of cell shading more so. Building up those lowlights on the bottom eventually, and then the highlights up top. You'll see that in a moment here. I just really wanted to make sure that the teeth were all uniform and white, so that when I made the background later, they wouldn't dilute away, and I wouldn't have to worry about trying to avoid the mouth line when drawing the background. But yeah, right here you'll notice, rather than doing my regular masking, I'm just taking that shadow color that's on the Karibo reference, and we're just going through and doing a little bit more, I guess not technically cell shading, but something a little bit more reminiscent of cell shading, where we build up the highlights and the lowlights, but instead of blending it, we're just going to keep it with these harsh lines similar to our reference Karibo, so that we can kind of mimic or I guess not mimic, it wouldn't be mimic, it would be a mock up, that's the word for it. Wow. Mock up where some of these secondary curls would be in the hair, or rather build some depth on some of the other tufts as they're kind of flitting upward. This portion's gonna take a little bit because I was being a little extra meticulous with a almost extra too small brush. But then, per usual, I'm spending too much time flickering between colors just to make sure that I'm on the right channel for everything. We're gonna go through and build in our shadows for like the edge of the fists and the tops of the feet where the hair is kind of covering over top of it. Then from here, we are going to get rid of our reference image, like that. And after a long moment here, we go and we make our, honestly, pretty basic background. Like I mentioned, the inspiration for this Karibo was a lot of Western cartoons and animation for how I wanted the style to be. So it's just going to be a very basic kind of blue-gray paletted background, almost akin to the first couple of seasons of Fairly Odd Parents, where a lot of those backgrounds were just kind of like static shapes that kind of float over the lines a little bit, more so to just have something back there. I had realized that my initial background was a little too dark, so we brought up the color value just a little, or the white value just a little bit, by using our dodge tool, I believe is what it's called. Don't quote me on that. And then I just wanted this spotlight almost as if we're kind of introducing him as a new character on the show. I tend to do this one a lot. It almost makes these individual pieces feel like museum characters or display pieces. And then from here, I realized I should maybe add a little bit more of a highlight on the top of the head, just to kind of emphasize the fact that it's got that top spotlighting. But folks, with that, that's going to be about it for this week's episode. All right, so regular show is one of those one of those shows that I would regularly watch when I was growing up. A lot of the times, if I wasn't watching something like Rick and Morty or Adventure Time, I was trying to catch regular show, reruns of Courage the Cowardly Dog, or God, weird to think about, Total Drama Island. All these shows kind of coming out around the same time and being popular around the same time. It kind of just makes sense that it would be at the forefront of my mind, especially since, God, like I mentioned in the intro here, this is one of the few shows I remember from the last 20 years having a Thanksgiving episode. Funny enough, Rick and Morty also. And that's not to say that other shows haven't done it. It's that I personally do not have experience with another show that's done it. At least not in the capacity of Rick and Morty sabotaging the hardened turkey for the presidential pardon. Regular show dove into the topic of, we have all of these Christmas songs, but no Thanksgiving songs. And yeah, I don't know. It's little details about some of these shows that I remember the most. Like, I remember things from Adventure Time, like Donnie the Grass Ogre and the Pants song. You know, gotta get pants, put on your pants, button, fly. You know, stuff like that they wanted us as kids to, like, latch onto and have us talking about or singing. I mean, SpongeBob did it. Look at, like, the Campfire song, or if you watched the SpongeBob SquarePants movie growing up, the Goofy Goober song, or Now That We're Men, or any other multitude of things. And I think regular show gravitated to me in its own way because it was also in that age where I had regular accessibility to things like the internet. So if I wanted to do more research on a show that I liked or actors that I liked, I could. Like, knowing that a lot of these guys in a lot of these animation media have worked together in some capacity, like Butch Hartman and Seth MacFarlane of Fairly Odd Parents and Family Guy fame, respectively. They worked together at Disney, if I remember Butch's story correctly. But in terms of, like, regular show, J.G. Quintel, creator of the show, he worked on The Misadventures of Flapjack alongside Pendleton Ward, who created regular show, or not regular show, Adventure Time. And I don't know, there's something about that family of creatives that growing up I kind of had this idolatry for. Because, I mean, even further down the line, shows like, off the top of my head, Steven Universe, Rebecca Sugar, the showrunner for that, she's the individual that made the end credits song for Adventure Time, cute little jaunty tune. And then just everything that other production companies like Channel Frederator have done. Like, they helped bring Pendleton Ward's show Bravest Warriors and other little things like Bean Puppy Cat got its start on Channel Frederator. Or personal favorite of mine, Super Fuckers. If you guys haven't seen it, definitely not for kids, but really funny. Has a lot of talented voice actors and some interesting character designs, to say the least. It kind of reminds me if The Boys was meant for 14-year-old boys. But yeah, so all this being said, when I found out all these different things about like J.G. Quintel and how a lot of these characters were based off of some of his college projects, I don't know, something just kind of like gelled good with me. And since I've always been a fan of these more darker toned shows, it was a good change of pace. Not to mention the various different things that they had for licensed music on this show. It's nutty. Like, they had Filter, it was Hey Man, Nice Shot. They had Mississippi Queen by Mountain. I still let people know about that to this day when I'm trying to get them to watch the show. And I have a hard feeling that this little show about the Blue Jay and raccoon just trying to make a living working at the park, pretty sure it'll have a pretty strong place in my heart for the longest. Just like all of these shows from my childhood, I'm sad to see it go, but I feel like the story that they told when they were on the air, even though not always cohesive, was a good one. And for someone like me, or kids that grew up like me, or kids that are growing up nowadays even, that sometimes you just need some escapism and some absurdity. It's just a great show. But I suppose I should probably lean away from the introspection just a little bit here and get talking about the actual piece. Now, if it wasn't apparent, the ruined it part of this is supposed to be that Rigby is eating the last bird leg. The feather kind of being an implication that it's Mordecai's, but maybe they just got into a fight over it. Who knows? And then this background here that I'm doing is supposed to be reminiscent of their title cards or even their final showdown pieces that they have a lot in the series. And overall, I think it just kind of tied the whole piece together nicely. But from here on, it's more or less just final adjustments while I'm trying to get everything looking as copacetic as possible, so I suppose I should roll this outro, shouldn't I? If you liked what you saw here today, guys, feel free to hit the like button down below. If you want to keep up to date, subscribe to the channel. If it's something you'd like to see in the future, leave a comment. Otherwise, thanks for joining me today, and bye.